you so much for coming out and helping out Thunderbird Partnership Foundation. Oh, it's awesome. So there's a lot of conversation in Canada right now about the legalization of marijuana, of cannabis. And we haven't had a whole lot of conversation in First Nations communities or with First Nations youth. We're wondering about how much are young people talking about the legalization of cannabis?
A lot of them are excited for the legalization of cannabis because I think that when it does become legal, they think that they can use it more openly. I think that it's scary. I think that it's also good in some ways because I know that, like, I've read social media posts that it does help people with like anxiety or like ADHD and stuff like that.
Okay.
So I think that it's good in that aspect, but it's also scary in the aspect that like more people will think it will be okay to use it, and I think it'll be a lot more frequent, a lot more people that if it were still legal, they wouldn't use it.
So if young people knew that it's still illegal in Ontario, it's under the age of 19, and the federal government says 18, but every province and territory can set their own age limit. So, for example, it's still illegal for young people to use marijuana, even when it becomes legalized. It's only 19 and over, just like alcohol. Right. So do you think young people know that, or it doesn't matter to them?
Yeah, I didn't know that.
The thing is, a lot of teenagers use marijuana for recreational use, and just like with anything, too much use is may not always be a good thing.
Your brain doesn't stop developing until you're about 24, 25 years old. Or how much do you learn in school about the part of your brain that's still developing?
Well, I take biology, and I also take kinesiology because I'm interested in the health field. But even then, we don't really learn much about the brain and how it develops, or like I didn't know that it's fully developed at the age of 24 to 25. I think a lot of youth just think like, I think they obviously know that it's not good for you health-wise.
So there's different components to a marijuana plant, and science is studying it now, and so they're understanding a lot more about the DNA, what makes up the cannabis plant. And that's how they're discovering the parts of the cannabis plant that can be beneficial medically. But there is still a part of the plant that creates the high, and that is the THC. And so because of the THC, and that's still going to be part of what's available for public sale when it becomes legal, there's concern about the impact of the THC on the developing brain. So from a cultural perspective, I'm going to talk about an experience that you guys have both had, and that is fasting. You both have fasted. And so our people have always known that the brain is just developing throughout all of the adolescent stage of life. And then you get to 24, 25, and it's like you're at your capacity then. But it isn't like magically at 24 and 25, you turn on a light switch and you can make all the best decisions in the world, and you know how to plan and organize your life and think about consequences. It takes input from your family and your community to develop the capacity for your brain to be able to function in that way.
Well, my berry fast was kind of just me learning about myself and how to transfer from being a young girl to being a woman. And it's really different. I learned so much about myself and so much about the relationships with not just my family, but my friends. And I learned about like how I value myself and how I should value my relationships with all my friends and family.
For me, it's fasting is definitely a time of intense reflection and self-reflection as well, and spending time with Mother Earth, and sitting out and observing nature around you and everything. It's really important to take the time to do that.
I've grown up in ceremonies, and I've grown up with a really big family and a lot of cousins that are around the same age as me. And I've seen them use marijuana, and they talk about going somewhere in life, and they talk about wanting things, but they're so distracted that they don't really do anything about it to get there.
Are you feeling sad as you're talking about this? Because I can feel it.
Yeah. And it worries me a lot because I want the best for them, but it just seems that they're so distracted and using drugs and alcohol, especially marijuana. It's like a regular daily thing for them that they'd rather go smoke marijuana than go to class or get the grades that they need to get to graduate. And it's not like they're moving forward, they're just stuck.
What do you think is missing in their life?
They just really need a push and to see the excitement of moving to the next step in your life instead of being stuck. I think a lot of reasons why all youth use marijuana is because of school and how stressed they are and what they go through at school and the amount of stress they have on a regular basis.
Life itself is it's like one big lesson, you know. It's a learning experience, and what I was always taught is that our spirits are having like a human experience, so that you can one day help others when they feel like maybe they're in a hard time, to share with them your experience and share with them how you overcome it, so you can help contribute to their learning experience. And through doing that, it creates, I don't know if you could say like a snowball effect or a ripple effect. And it just spreads well-being and clarity to many different people.
Thanks for sharing those incredible experiences with me. They're really important. And the reason I asked you to talk about them is because those are the kinds of experiences that help your brain to develop those critical thinking skills. When you pause and you give something up and it has a payoff down the road, it isn't immediate, although you did both talk about the immediate benefits, the learning that you got. Spiritually, that continues to unfold over time. And so that's actually one of the critical ways that our brain, we support the development of our brain and that prefrontal cortex and the way our brain responds to the world around us, and helps you as young people to move from this idea of I want everything right now, like the electronic world that you talk about, you're just focused on that right now, to thinking about, well, there's limits on that and I need to put that away because I've got to study. And if I study, then I'm going to get, a good grade. And then if I get a good grade, then maybe, I'll graduate and I'll go on to do something meaningful in my life. How does your family think about this legalization of cannabis, and what are they saying to you? Jisa, if you wouldn't mind starting us off on that conversation.
Within my immediate family, people, I don't believe there's a lot of understanding towards it. And although we have discussed, the consequences and the benefits of recreational and medicinal marijuana, I feel like there's almost a fear towards it in my family, instead of an understanding. Because when you understand marijuana, you have a clearer view of what it can be used for, but also, the downsides to using it. And in understanding that, you can have an unbiased opinion on it. Because I know my parents, they say, well, stay away from that, because that's what parents are. They make sure you walk a straight path without any distractions or potential dangers. But I believe that what we need to do is discuss with our youth, the good side and the bad side, so that everyone has, a full understanding of it in any sense, in any way of using it.
So your parents tell you don't use, which is
Yeah, like my immediate family, everyone says.
don't use.
Yeah.
Throughout my childhood and growing up, they've always told me to like stay away from drugs and alcohol and that it's not good for you. And I remember when like I was younger, like I had seen it and I had always like wondered what it was, but I just had thought I had seen it so like often sometimes that like I just thought it was a normal thing. But now that I'm older, I like realize like, oh, that was marijuana. Like I know what they were doing and stuff like that. So some of my family use illegal marijuana, and even the people who do use it, they don't really say much about it. And they, even though that they use it, they still tell me not to use it. And I've even said a couple times like, well, why is it okay for you to use it if it's not okay for me to use? And it's just like, well, I'm older than you and I'm your uncle or I'm your auntie or I'm this, so I have say of what's okay and what's not. And that was always like a struggle for me. Is just like how is it okay? How is this okay for you, but it's not okay for me?
So Nayajista, can you give us any advice about how youth can have better dialogue about the legalization of cannabis?
Every single year they do a really big assembly that the whole school goes to. It's the same assembly every single year, and the same people run it. And it's about drinking and driving. And they do it towards the end of the year because of prom and all that stuff. But not once throughout high school, not even in health class, do they teach you anything about drugs.
So how do we break that barrier of silence to get young people talking about cannabis?
It's seems kind of difficult because like you said, it's really prominent in the high school environment, but it's not something that's talked about a lot. And I think the questions we need to ask ourselves is, how do we engage youth to bring up discussions about it and not feel intimidated or worried or afraid to begin conversations amongst their peers or in their classrooms or on a larger level, like in terms of like the whole school.
I think a lot of the reasons why people or youth don't talk about it is because they think if they were to talk to someone about it, they'd get in trouble for it. And a lot of youth, there's obviously social groups, and there's always that one group that is known like as people who smoke pot, and a lot of the time that's like looked down upon in high school. But there's also a popular group that does the same thing, but they're still a popular group because they're just more popular and they have more money. And I think that the kids that are in the middle of all of that, they are confused because there's two different sides to it. Like you can either be looked at as like a pothead, or you can be looked at as like a popular kid who fits in with the popular crowd and just smokes pot. Like it's two different sides. So I think there's a lot of confusion within high school about like where the social standings of like where marijuana fits into that.
That's a pretty... I want to thank you for being so open about your observations about young people and your peers and your friends and your cousins who may be pressured every day by either coping with school or by friends who are avoiding or don't know how to get through what they think is a long period of time. Gisa, when you think about that, what Naya is talking about, what would be a message that you would have for young people who are struggling with this idea they can't make it through that long period of time?
We all have purpose, belonging, meaning, and hope within us. And although when you're stuck in a hard time, it's very easy to turn to different ways of coping. There's always things around you that you can turn to that are actually beneficial and will help move you forward towards your goals and various aspirations. No matter where we are in life, or no matter what the decisions we have made, or in any situation, we always have our family, our culture, and our ceremonies.